Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to be liked by everyone? Not hated, not attacked, just liked. At first, it seems harmless. You check how people react to what you say. You pay attention to their expressions. You adjust your behavior slightly to avoid conflict, avoid judgment, avoid standing out too much. Most people call this maturity. But what if it is something else? What if much of what you call being considerate is actually fear? Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being criticized. Fear of discovering that not everyone approves of you. The strange thing is that this fear rarely announces itself. It hides behind politeness. It disguises itself as responsibility. It convinces you that keeping everyone comfortable is the same as living a good life. So you become careful. Careful with your words. Careful with your opinions. Careful with your dreams. And little by little, you stop asking a simple question. What do I truly want? Instead, another question takes over your life. What will they think? This is where many people lose themselves. Not through one dramatic decision, but through thousands of small compromises. In this video, we will explore why the need for approval has such a powerful grip on the human mind, why it quietly steals your freedom, and how reclaiming your authenticity may be one of the most important journeys you ever take. The addiction to approval. Few people realize that approval can become an addiction, not the kind that destroys you overnight, the kind that slowly reshapes your entire identity. Think about modern life. A social media post gets attention and you feel a small rush. Your boss praises your work and your confidence rises. Someone criticizes you online and suddenly your entire day feels different. The event itself is not the problem. The problem is what happens when your sense of worth becomes attached to those reactions. Over time, you begin outsourcing your self-esteem. Instead of deciding who you are, you wait for others to tell you. Instead of trusting your own judgment, you look around the room for confirmation. This pattern begins earlier than most people think. As children, we quickly learn that approval brings rewards. Good behavior gets praise. Obedience gets acceptance. Fitting in creates safety. There is nothing wrong with that. The danger appears when those childhood lessons follow us into adulthood. Many grown adults are still seeking permission to be themselves. They change opinions to avoid criticism, stay silent to avoid rejection, remain in jobs, relationships, and lifestyles that no longer fit them. Not because they are weak, because they have trained themselves to believe that acceptance is more important than truth. But there is a price for that trade. Every time you abandon your truth to gain approval, you lose a small piece of yourself. And eventually, the applause becomes louder than your own inner voice. Why some people are more vulnerable than others. Have you ever wondered why criticism barely affects some people, while others carry a single negative comment for days? Why one person can walk away from social approval without much struggle, while another feels trapped by it? The answer is not simply confidence, and it is not weakness. The answer often lies deeper in the way each person is psychologically wired. We do not all experience the world in the same way. Some people naturally pay close attention to external harmony. They notice subtle changes in people's moods. They sense tension immediately. They care deeply about maintaining connection. These qualities can be beautiful, but they can also become dangerous when self-worth becomes tied to keeping everyone happy. Others struggle differently. They are not afraid of disappointing people emotionally. They are afraid of being wrong, afraid of looking foolish, afraid of exposing an idea that might be rejected. As a result, they remain silent. They hold back their creativity. They keep their true thoughts hidden behind caution. Different personalities, same prison. This is why approval seeking is often difficult to recognize. It does not always appear as people-pleasing. Sometimes it appears as perfectionism. Sometimes as overthinking. Sometimes as the constant need to prove yourself. The form changes. The fear remains. And the fear is simple. If people see the real me, will I still be accepted? The moment you begin asking that question consciously, something changes. You stop seeing your behavior as fate. You start seeing it as a pattern. And patterns can be changed. But only after they are seen, the mask you forgot you were wearing. Most people don't wake up one day and decide to become someone else. It happens gradually. So gradually that they barely notice it. A child learns which behaviors earn praise. A teenager learns what makes them fit in. An adult learns which version of themselves receives approval. And piece by piece, a mask is built. At first, the mask is useful. It helps you navigate the world. You act professionally at work. You behave differently around family. You adjust to social situations. There is nothing wrong with that. The problem begins when the role becomes stronger than the person behind it. Have you ever met someone who seems successful in every way, yet looks exhausted all the time? They smile when they want to scream. They agree when they want to object. They say, "Everything is fine," while carrying a storm inside. Many people spend years protecting an image they no longer recognize. The responsible one, the strong one, the successful one, the one who never struggles. Eventually, they become trapped by the character they created, not because others force them to stay there, because they fear what might happen if the mask falls. The greatest danger is not wearing a mask. The greatest danger is forgetting that you're wearing one. And when that happens, you stop living your life. You start performing it. The cost of constantly pleasing people. People often talk about the benefits of being liked. Few talk about the cost, because the cost doesn't arrive all at once. It accumulates quietly. A little resentment here, a little frustration there, a little disappointment each time you betray yourself. Imagine someone who spends years saying yes when they mean no. They attend events they don't enjoy, accept responsibilities they don't want, remain in relationships that drain them. From the outside, they seem dependable. From the inside, they feel trapped. This is the hidden burden of people-pleasing. You become so focused on managing other people's emotions that you lose contact with your own. You know what everyone else wants, but you no longer know what you want. Many professionals experience this. They climb a ladder they never wanted to climb. They reach goals that don't satisfy them. Then, one day they wake up wondering why success feels empty. The answer is often simple. The life they built was designed to gain approval, not fulfillment. The tragedy is not criticism. The tragedy is spending years abandoning yourself to avoid criticism. Every compromise seems small in the moment. But years later, those compromises become a life. And sometimes the heaviest burden isn't failure. It's realizing you succeeded at becoming someone you never wanted to be. The shadow. What you are afraid to show. There are parts of yourself that you openly accept. And there are parts you hide. Not only from other people, from yourself. This hidden territory is what Jung called the shadow. Most people think the shadow contains only negative qualities. Anger, jealousy, fear, weakness. But the shadow is much larger than that. Sometimes your confidence lives there. Your ambition, your courage, your ability to stand alone. Anything that was judged unacceptable at some point can be pushed into the dark. Imagine a person who has spent years trying to be kind. They never express anger, never challenge anyone, never create conflict. Everyone sees them as pleasant, But beneath that image, resentment slowly grows. The anger did not disappear. It simply went underground. And what stays underground often gains power. This is why so many people are terrified of judgment. They fear that others will see what they have spent years hiding. The insecurity, the neediness, the rage, the vulnerability, the parts they themselves refuse to face. Real freedom begins when you stop running from these hidden pieces, not by acting on every impulse, not by becoming reckless, but by acknowledging that they exist, because what you accept can be understood. What you deny will continue controlling you from the shadows, and nothing weakens the fear of rejection more than finally becoming honest with yourself. The courage to face yourself. Most people think courage means facing the world, standing up to critics, taking risks, overcoming obstacles. But some of the hardest battles happen in complete silence. They happen when you are alone. No audience, no applause, no recognition, just you and the truth. Because facing yourself is far more difficult than facing anyone else. It requires admitting things you have spent years avoiding. The resentment you pretend isn't there. The fear hidden behind perfectionism. The loneliness disguised as independence. The insecurity buried beneath achievement. Many people spend decades running from these realities. They stay busy. They stay distracted. They stay surrounded by noise. Anything to avoid hearing the voice within. But the truth has a strange quality. The longer you avoid it, the heavier it becomes. And eventually, it demands attention. The path toward authenticity begins when you stop fighting yourself. Not by becoming flawless. Not by fixing every weakness. But by becoming honest. Honest about your motives. Honest about your fears. Honest about the parts of yourself that don't fit the image you've created. Something powerful happens when you stop hiding. The energy once spent maintaining appearances becomes available for growth. And slowly, the person you were pretending to be loses its grip. Because real confidence isn't built from admiration. It is built from self-acceptance. And self-acceptance begins with the courage to see yourself clearly. Carl Jung's most painful decision. There comes a moment in many lives when comfort and truth begin moving in different directions. At first, the gap is small, easy to ignore, but eventually, a choice must be made. Carl Jung faced such a moment. For years, he stood beside one of the most influential thinkers of his era. His career was growing. His reputation was rising. His future seemed secure. From the outside, everything appeared to be working perfectly. Yet something inside him refused to stay silent. The more deeply he explored the human psyche, the more he realized his vision was leading him somewhere different. A place that many around him could not accept. Following that path came with consequences. Criticism, isolation, misunderstanding, the loss of professional alliances, the loss of certainty. Most people imagine courage as a dramatic act, but often courage looks much quieter. It looks like remaining loyal to your inner conviction when doing so costs you approval. Jung could have stayed where it was safe. He could have protected his reputation. He could have avoided conflict. Instead, he chose uncertainty. And that choice changed the course of his life. His story is not important because he was a famous psychologist. It matters because it reflects a challenge every person eventually faces. At some point, you will have to decide. Will you become who others expect you to be? Or will you become who you truly are? The answer often determines the direction of an entire life. How to stop needing approval. Breaking free from approval is not a single decision. It is a practice, a daily one. Most people wait until they feel confident before acting authentically. But confidence rarely comes first. Action comes first. One of the simplest places to begin is by noticing where approval controls you most. Maybe it's at work. You hesitate to share your ideas. Maybe it's in relationships. You say yes when you want to say no. Maybe it's on social media. You measure your worth through attention and reactions. Awareness is the first step. You cannot change what you refuse to see. The second step is learning to tolerate discomfort. Not every disagreement is a disaster. Not every criticism is a threat. Not every person who misunderstands you needs an explanation. This is where many people regain their freedom. They stop trying to manage everyone's perception. They focus instead on their character, their values, their integrity, because there is a profound difference between being respected and being approved of. Approval is unstable. It changes with moods, trends, and opinions. Character remains. Some people will never understand your choices. Others will judge them. A few may even reject them. That is part of life. The goal is not to make everyone comfortable. The goal is to live in a way that allows you to respect the person you see in the mirror. And that kind of peace cannot be given by anyone else. It has to be earned from within. By now, you may have realized something uncomfortable. The need for approval is not just a habit. It is a way of living, a way of thinking, a lens through which many people see themselves without ever questioning it. For years, perhaps even decades, you may have measured your worth through acceptance, through praise, through belonging, through the reassurance that others agree with who you are. But there is a problem with building your identity on approval. Approval can be given, and anything that can be given can also be taken away. That is why so many people feel trapped, not by other people, but by the fear of losing what those people think of them. Real freedom begins when that fear starts losing its grip. Not because you become cold, not because you stop caring, but because you finally understand that your life cannot be guided by the changing opinions of others. There will always be people who misunderstand you, people who disagree with you, people who walk away. That is not a sign that you are on the wrong path. Sometimes it is proof that you have stopped abandoning yourself. So before you leave, ask yourself one honest question. Where in your life are you still seeking permission to be yourself? Your work? Your relationships? Your family? Your online image? Whatever comes to mind first, pay attention to it. Because awareness is where freedom begins. And perhaps the greatest achievement in life is not becoming admired. It is becoming real.